Our thoughts are with the families and friends of all those who died or were injured in the attack in Nottingham yesterday.
This is the Home Affairs
Home Secretary, I can see
committee.
that you've brought some officials from the Home Office with you.
And
I wondered if, just for the record, it might be helpful if you could just get
being unable
the two
to
people
answer
supporting
question
you
after
just
question
to
after
give
question.
their name and their role. I don't know who'd like to start. Rachel.
Hi. Good morning. I'm Rachel Watson, the Policing Director in the Home Office.
Good morning. I'm Dan Hobbs and I'm the Director for Asylum Protection and Enforcement in the Home Office.
Thank you. I also just ought to mention, apparently the air conditioning isn't working in this room, so we are expecting some fans to be brought in to keep us all cool. So just so everybody knows about that. We, as you would expect, Home Secretary, have lots of questions for you this morning. I would really just like to start where we as a committee left off last week. We're in the middle of an inquiry into human trafficking, and last week we took evidence from a commercial website called Viva Street, and that hosts prostitution adverts on which victims of sex trafficking have been advertised. And I think, to be fair, the committee was fairly shocked about what we heard. And I think the public might also be shocked that these pimping websites are currently legal, and that organised prostitution operations like Viva Street, which allows single individuals to pay to advertise multiple women for prostitution, are operating freely and openly. And I just wondered why it is that we haven't outlawed these types of pimping websites.
Thank you, David. Diana. Before I answer, may I just take a moment to reiterate the sympathies that you've expressed for those who were directly affected and more broadly affected by the Grenfell Tower tragedy. And I also want to echo the comments that I made yesterday about the tragic incident in Nottingham. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to go into operational details here. I made a statement yesterday, but it's obviously deeply shocking for the community in Nottingham and the surrounding area, and my thoughts are with the family and friends of those affected. I have to say that is the first time I have personally heard of Viva Street, and you're saying it's on a website advertising prostitution services.
She doesn't know what she's talking about.
Well, I mean, what I would say is that
even
we
I know about
obviously
it.
have a very. I'll turn to Rachel and see if there's anything from officials, but we have a very. This is a heinous practice. We need to ensure that the vulnerability of those involved is put first and foremost at the forefront of people on the front line. Prostitution is very closely related to human trafficking, modern slavery, people smuggling, and we obviously passed the landmark Modern Slavery Act in 2015, and that puts into place a broad
compromised
framework,
by the Illegal Immigration Act,
which is designed specifically to prevent vulnerable people to which you refer.
I hear what you say. I'm just aware that Viva Street have met with your officials in the Home Office 15 times in the last 5 years. So
exactly.
Clearly your officials know about Viva Street. And I'd also just point out that there are many countries in the world, including France, Israel and the US, that have actually outlawed these websites. So I just wondered, hearing that, is your view that actually we're quite soft on allowing these websites to continue compared to other countries in the world?
Well, I mean, I think that when it comes to adult services websites, law enforcement agencies do recognise that these websites are an enabler of sexual exploitation. As I said, they're linked to trafficking, and we are working closely with the online companies to ensure that awareness is raised so that that criminal activity it does not occur. To be honest, this is the first time I'm coming across this particular subject. Unless the officials can add anything, I would rather reserve my position and write to you in more detail about this specific issue. Yes, that would be helpful. I just wanted to tell you about this, actually. I had a look on the website for Hampshire, which I believe is the county that your constituency is based in. Now, there were 297 prostitution adverts live on Viva Street yesterday,
I had a look at about 150 of those, and at least half of them had adverts of different women being used, but using the same phone number or the same text. So that's a kind of red flag, they could be trafficked. And lots of adverts suggesting a woman was new in town or only here for a short period, which again fits with what we've heard about women being moved around the country by traffickers. So those adverts, I've actually now referred to Hampshire and the Isle of Wight Constabulary for them to have a look at this, because it seems to me there's some obvious red flags there. So I hear what you say about this is the first time that you've kind of become aware of this. I just wonder, though, just on your reflection of hearing that about in your own local area, do you think we need to do something about this? The government needs to do something about these websites?
Well, it's totally unacceptable, of course.
Okay.
What I am encouraged by is that we do have new mechanisms in legislation to deal with the trafficking of vulnerable people, which includes exploitation, which includes and can include prostitution of the type that you're talking about. And there's a whole array of measures to support vulnerable victims as they go through a criminal investigation, special measures, witness anonymity, and obviously if it's support through the modern slavery framework that is required, that will be provided upon an assessment upon individual circumstances. But I think, this is in terms of that element, yeah, there is a large framework. It requires an effective police investigation.
Okay, so I just want to move on to the illegal migration bill, and particularly dealing with the example I've been setting out around women who've been trafficked into sexual exploitation. And I had a look at the Equalities Impact Assessment for the bill, and that concludes in the bill that there would be a disproportionate impact on women of the provisions that are going to be introduced. So I just want to drill down in this a little bit. If a woman who had been brought into the United Kingdom by a illegal route for sex trafficking, so if she came to the attention of the authorities, would she be subject to arrest and detention under the illegal migration bill?
Well, let me just make it for context. The vast majority of people coming on small boats are men, about 80%. So we are talking about a minority of people who are female, and then we also, I would say, are talking about an even smaller minority of women who are being trafficked on the boats.
Yeah,
I'm not denying that it occurs,
okay,
but it is a small fraction, yeah, compared to the totality of the issue that our bill is designed to deal with.
But they're caught up in it, so would they be subject to arrest and detention?
Well, what I would say is that we take very seriously our commitments and our protections under the Modern Slavery Act. We want to ensure that the balance is struck. What we've seen, I've talked about it last time and in a follow-up letter, that modern slavery rules have been exploited and abused by people coming here illegally to gain time to stay in the UK. Our measures in the bill make it harder for people to game the modern slavery system. At the same time, our measures in the bill, I believe, strike the right balance and still enable us to protect the genuine victims of trafficking,
okay,
such as the type that you mentioned,
we've heard
who
this,
are there who have been trafficked, who are
So will they be subject to arrest and detention?
Well, it would depend on the circumstances. I'm not going to give you a definitive answer without knowing
irregularly, illegally into the United Kingdom, who comes to the attention of the authorities, who's been brought in and trafficked for sexual exploitation. Under the illegal migration bill, you're saying you're not sure whether they would be arrested and detained.
There is an exception. So we've got provisions in the IMB which deal with the situation I've just said. We've got to...
So all women who are in those circumstances, they wouldn't be subject to this provision of arrest and detention?
If I can finish the question, because it's a complicated issue, so I do need to get through the explanation. We've set out very targeted and deliberately drafted measures in the illegal migration bill. What we've done is we have allowed for the scenario where someone is claiming to be a victim of trafficking or modern slavery, and if they are part of a police investigation,
but
for example...
Say it's just come to the attention of the authorities, this woman has arrived irregularly or illegally into the United Kingdom and is being used for sex trafficking. What and just leave aside the police investigation, what happens to this woman?
Well, that's a fundamental aspect of the issue you've just raised. This is a illegality we're talking about if someone's being trafficked for prostitution. Yeah. We believe that our measures strike the right balance of protecting those genuine victims. If they go to the police, if they're required by the police to be here and be part of a live investigation relating to the investigation of trafficking or modern slavery, then they could claim an exemption to the removal powers in the bill. So we have to also make sure that we are not allowing the continuation of the gaming of our rules, which is people claiming to be victims of modern slavery when they patently are not, as a way to thwart removal, as a way to thwart detention, and as a way to buy time in the United Kingdom.
I think the problem for the committee is that we've asked for evidence of this gaming of the system, and we've not received any of it. And in fact, we've had in front of us the former anti-slavery commissioner, who again says she's seen no evidence of this either. But just on this particular point,
that's not right, because you raised this point last time I came before the committee. I made the point then, I still maintain it, and I wrote to you with detailed examples subsequently setting out. No, not two actually. Several examples, and I can mention more examples now. Several examples of how modern slavery rules are being abused by people who are not genuine victims of modern slavery. We need to bring an end to that, and that's what this bill does.
We've seen a couple, four, I think my clerk reliably informs me, that you put in your letter. I just want to be clear though. So what you're saying to me is that this person, this woman, would be subject to arrest and detention, but she may be able to stop being removed from the country if she then participates in giving evidence and being part of a police investigation. I think that's what you're saying to me. So she would be arrested and detained.
We are saying that we take our commitments to modern slavery very seriously. We are not including blanket exclusions in our legislation.
So she would be arrested.
Struck the right balance, whereby genuine victims of modern slavery can still put in a claim, and if they are able to meet the thresholds that we've set in the bill, combined with thresholds that we are implementing at the moment in terms of objective and compelling evidence for their reasonable grounds claim, if they're part of a police investigation, we believe that will filter out the vexatious claims of modern slavery.
Okay, so she'd be subject to arrest and detention. She might be able to claim this exemption if she's helping the police. Will she be allowed to access the support via the national referral mechanism?
Potentially, yes. Absolutely. If she is eligible, if she meets the criteria that we've set, so she meets the thresholds that we've set in our reasonable grounds guidance, so objective and compelling evidence of being a victim of modern slavery. If there is there's a requirement by the police that she or he stay here to participate and enable investigation. And if there is she satisfies the criteria in modern slavery, then yes, she may well be entitled to the NRM and support under the modern slavery regime.
Right. I mean, it's quite clear, isn't it, that we know particularly victims of trafficking for sexual exploitation find it very difficult to come forward and explain what's happened to them. It takes them quite a long time to get confidence to do that. Can I just...
I would also have to add here is that at the moment, because of the dramatic and exponential increase in the number of claims which are being put into our modern slavery system, the delay has become unacceptable. From what used to take 40 or 50 days to consider a reasonable grounds or conclusive grounds decision is now taking 500 days. That's because the system's been overwhelmed by a large number of meritless claims. These measures will actually free up our resources to
because of the hostile environment,
those genuine victims of modern slavery more quickly.
Well, again, the anti-slavery commissioner doesn't agree with that, and she says the fact that there are more people coming forward is because of better training and better spotting of people who might well have been trafficked. So that's why she says the number's gone up, and I think actually the former Prime Minister Theresa May also takes that view. Can I also just ask you, while we're on about this issue of the illegal migration bill. It's 100 days since that bill was introduced into the Commons. It's gone through all its common stages. It's now in the Lords, as you know. I think it's the final day for the committee stage in the Lords. Why have we still not got an economic impact assessment?
How much will it cost?
Well, we obviously have produced lots of documents.
Using the word obviously is
need for
specious.
The bill. I need to set out the context. We've got a very urgent problem here relating to illegal migration. It's one of the Prime Minister's priorities and mine as well. 45,000 people travelling across the Channel illegally last year. We're spending £6 million a day on hotel accommodation, £3 billion a year. So doing nothing is not an option.
I would like you just to answer the question, because I know other members want to comment. So why have we not got the economic impact assessment?
Well, the
which
reason
is a requirement really for members to know how much this bill is going to cost.
We will be publishing it in due course.
When does that mean? I mean, the bill will have finished all its stages and been given royal assent by the time we get this, won't it?
The issue is that there are many unknown factors relating to... If I could finish a sentence, then we might be able to get somewhere.
I'm intrigued with what you're saying. There's many unknown factors of a bill that's 3/4 of its way through the House of Lords.
There are many unknown factors upon which the bill's success is contingent. I'm very happy to admit that. For example, the delivery of our Rwanda agreement. We're currently in litigation. And those timelines are out of our control. We need to conclude our litigation relating to our Rwanda agreement. Okay. Once we have a clear view of the operability of Rwanda confirmed by the courts, then we will be able to take a very firm view about the economic impact of this bill. But I would also say, to my mind, it's pretty obvious what the economic impact of the bill will be. We'll stop spending £3 billion a year on our asylum cost. We will stop. It's a bill which will lead to the cessation of 45,000 people in hotels and £6 million a day.
How much would detention cost?
To my mind, those are savings which we cannot ignore.
Okay. Are you able to help us with what the financial assessment of detaining all those that will need to be detained in the bill? What's the cost of that? Because you're going to detain people for at least up to 28 days. So what's the cost of that bit?
Well, again, we are keeping that under review. I mean, again, that is an unknown. I cannot predict the number of people who are going to be arriving on any one day.
And building illegally. The detention centres?
We have past experience, but we know that these numbers really vary. When the bill comes into force, when the bill comes into force, we will be able to take a view as to how quickly we're able to operationalise our detention powers, our relocation powers.
So
that will then inform the costs.
Okay. All right, thank you. Just moving on very quickly to the backlog. So as of the end of November last year, the asylum initial decision backlog was 131,292. That's what was published. On the 28th of May, it was 137,583. So I just want to be clear, has the asylum backlog increased or decreased under your watch?
The backlog of initial decisions, which predate the 28th of June 2022, the so-called legacy backlog, has decreased. As of December, when the Prime Minister stood up and set out our plan, that stood at just over 92,000. That has fallen by about 17,000 at most recent count. So the backlog to which the Prime Minister and myself have consistently been referring has fallen. We also have inflowing cases, which post-date the 28th of June and run up to today.
Yeah.
It's absolutely impossible to ever get that number down to zero because there are constantly cases coming into the system.
Okay.
But I accept, of course, the numbers keep rising because the boats keep coming. And that is the flow of casework, and that is what we are also working on to reduce.
So I think 1,200 came over in small boats between Saturday and Monday alone. So that needs to be obviously added into your backlog. So just so I'm clear on the backlogs, you've got your legacy backlog, which you say has gone down by 17,000. Then you've got your flow backlog, which is just going up and up. And then as of today, you've got more coming in. So you've got kind of 3 lots of backlogs that you're dealing with.
I mean, you can cut the cake in very many different ways. Yeah. You could say, it's very typical and proper to define a legacy backlog. That's when the NABA came into force, and it's right that the old rules applied up until then. There are some very long-standing cases in that backlog. It's
Some
right that we deal with that 92,000 strong
2007.
caseload. Flow, you could go up until the 7th of March 2023, which is when we will backdate the implementation of our new measures in the illegal migration bill. And then you could do a post 7th of March caseload as well. So there are different ways of looking at it, but the Prime Minister and I have been consistent and clear all along that pre-28th of June 22 backlog, so-called legacy initial decisions, has fallen because of interventions that we've put in place.
Right, so it just seems to me you've got a backlog of backlogs now. You're just building backlog upon backlog. That's the position you're in.
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say we've got a caseload of cases, and you have to define them in different ways. There are different rules which apply to different cases.
Well, we'll just disagree.
There are initial decisions. There are decisions which are being appealed. There's work in progress. There's business as usual. There are all types of decisions in the asylum caseload. It's not fair to say, to count it all in a very simplistic form that you're suggesting.
Well, I think we're going to disagree on that, because I think you have a backlog of backlogs now. Can I just finally deal with caseworkers? So you very kindly wrote to me last night, and you set out in your letter about the Prime Minister's promise that you would have 2,500 caseworkers to deal with these backlogs. In that letter, you say, as of the 1st of March, there were 1,281 caseworkers. You say also that the caseworker number will go up to 1,800 by the summer, and by September this year, it will be 2,500. So I just want to ask you how that's going, because we're now in June. So what's the latest figure in terms of caseworkers?
I'll turn to Dan, but my latest figure is that we have, let me just get to my numbers. So we've increased the decision makers, and my most recent figure is 1,281 full-time equivalent asylum decision makers.
So you have that
That's
in March.
48% more than July 2022, and we are aiming to get to 2,500 by September.
So, sorry, the 1st of March you were at 1,281, so you've not increased that since March?
No, that is the figure that we have, which is as of the March figure. Obviously, the recruitment is ongoing, and we have a number of mass campaigns that are running through the operations. We don't have the figure as at today.
You don't know today how many caseworkers you have, and this is one of the Prime Minister's top priorities, to clear the backlog.
We produce these figures on a regular basis.
Not regular enough.
I'm very confident that is the most recent figures. I have very regular, intensive work programmes on this issue of caseworker recruitment. We're actually doing very well on meeting our target. I'm confident we're going to meet our target of 2,500
3 months late.
When does summer... What's the definition then of summer for getting to 1,800? In your letter you said by the summer you'll be at 1,800. And it's June the 14th today? It's summer?
I mean, I can write to you, if I can access that data of the absolutely up-to-date figure as of today. I'm not sure if we can identify that figure, but I'm happy to. I'm as I say, I look at this piece of work very, very closely with a very intensive work programme in the Home Office, and as I said, there's been a very proactive effort to recruit and onboard caseworkers, improve their productivity, train them up, and as I said, I'm confident that we're going to meet our target.
Okay, so you're going to get to 1,800 by the summer and 2,500 by September.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
Really, goodness me. And can I just ask as well, are those figures gross or net figures that you've put in your letter?
They'll be full-time equivalent.
So they're full-time equivalent, and are they gross or net? Because we know when we had evidence, I think it was in 2021, that the attrition rate within this group of staff was at 47%. So what's the attrition rate?
It will be about, we will be talking about our total cohort.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just about people coming in. We've got to, it's only effective if we have bums on seats, so to speak, at the end of the day. So this is not just about a one-way recruitment drive. This is about what our total cohort comprises.
Because that's interesting. In your letter, you say you don't keep records of of people leaving or retiring or moving on or getting promotions. So how do you know those figures are correct? It's in your letter last night.
We know what our total workforce is.
Oh, do you? Because you say, we do not keep a central record of the number of asylum caseworkers who've left their role due to retirement, resignation, promotion or other causes. So you're saying to me these figures that you've put in your letter are net figures, but you don't actually have a central record to work out how many people have left?
I don't understand.
So we do know that our attrition rate that you mentioned has dropped significantly, so it's down to around 28%.
28%?
Since your last calculation in March.
The 2,500 is the aim to have number of caseworkers in post in September, and that is what we are working towards and the plans are delivering against.
And as I said, I think we've got a good track record. As of our most recent figure, we've already increased the number by about 48% compared to July 2022. So we're moving in the right direction.
But you'd missed your target in July 2022, if I remember, because you were supposed to get to 1,000, weren't you? And you missed that target. So it took you longer to get to over 1,000. I agree, it's good to see progress being made. But you've got a long way to go if you're going to get to 2,500 by September. And you've got an attrition rate of 28%. Those figures, to me, I have to say, we'll be interested to see the next figures being produced from the Home Office on this issue. Right, thank you. I'm going to move to Simon.
It's extraordinary. She's so
thank you.
unprepared.
Thank you for joining us.